everybody, it is me, Game Penguin 21, and today... Alright, time for a shorter video, and one that I don't know is one that I have much else to say on the topic other than what's already been said. And that is, of course, the sort of blacklisting, quote-unquote, of Black Myth Wukong. Now, Black Myth Wukong, I think, released a little bit earlier in this week, if I'm remembering my timeline correctly, and in and of itself was hit with very interesting reviews from the early copy reviewers. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Over the past week, people have been playing it and people have been giving their own opinions on it, but we're not going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at least 1 to 2-ish articles in particular. The one biggest one that everyone's been dunking on, oops, I just dropped my phone. The one biggest one that everyone's been dunking on has been the Screen Rant article specifically, as well as an IGN article, but I couldn't really find too much on that one, as the Screen Rant article itself had an entire section dedicated to the lacking diversity and inclusion. Now, of course, I'm going to read out some of the tweets and stuff, so this will be a shorter video because this is mostly a Saturday upload, because I didn't think that I could add any more to the conversation than has already been said, so we'll just leave it at me reading some stuff, giving my own opinion, and then we'll be on our way. But again, if you like what it is that I do and want to support me in any way, shape, or form, links down to everything in the description below. Please feel free to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. So let's get started with Pirate Nation, someone who I have actually used as a kind of reference for a bit. Now, again, when I say reference, I mean more of just I take the tweets that he does because he tends to be very middling, and I like a lot of his stuff. But anyway, that's biases aside, he does provide some interesting opinions and provides 2 screenshots here, which we will take a look at. So he basically says Chinese users are extremely mad about Black Myth Wukong, Western developers. I had to search up like Black Myth Wukong, that's why it's bolded there. And they are completely right about being mad F gaming Jernos itself. Now, of course, the screenshots here, this is probably the best one because I forgot to take them specifically, unfortunately. But the 2 things that you can kind of see here, which I'll zoom in on just a little bit, is that this person's saying F IGN and Game Screen and all the stuff and Western gaming media entirely. This is, I think, from someone in China, but unsure as they are speaking English. So unsure. But you can see the Screen Rant article next to it with a 3.0 star rating, which very strange that it's that low. I thought it would be a little bit higher, but I mean, again, everyone has their own opinion. But on the pros and cons here, they say that things like the gameplay is good, the cinematography is breathtaking at times, and it's great diversity in items and mechanics. However, you'll notice in the cons section, one particular con that is underlined here is the lacking in inclusivity and diversity. Now, if we can cut to a little bit earlier in this sort of saga of Black Myth Wukong right now, the biggest and the most important thing in this that a lot of people have been talking about and has been coming up again is that Black Myth Wukong, the developers, were actually quote-unquote bribed, allegedly, by the developers by the people at Sweet Baby Inc. with about, I believe, $7 to $8-ish million. Again, that's not verbatim the quote of what they said, but they were supposedly said that. Now, of course, this has led to a vast, interesting array of a bunch of different types of gaming journalists saying, hey, this game doesn't have a lot of journeys and stuff, despite the fact that this is based on the Chinese mythos, which they wanted to have a very accurate thing to that. In fact, more interestingly and more importantly, I managed to find a particular screenshot because I couldn't find the actual article itself. If someone knows about it, they can probably link it in the comments. I'll pin that. But the basic section that everyone has a problem with is the section titled "Lacks Inclusivity," largely lacks inclusivity and representation. An entire section about this, by the way. So we'll just read through this little section here. I don't think this is the full section of the article, but this is just the section that everyone seems to have a problem with. So we'll read this out, and I'll explain it a little bit more. While my analysis and review of Black Myth Wukong remains focused on gameplay, it's important to mention the controversy surrounding the game's studio and the reports of misogyny and sexism from the developers. Playing as a female gamer allowed me to notice issues surrounding inclusion and representation. We'll get to the author of this article in a little bit, so just bear that in mind. As for chapters 1 and 2, which I don't think is too far into the game, while characters are clearly fictional and fantastical creatures, there were no female or feminine NPCs. NPCs, enemies, and or bosses present. Only the exception is, if you would call it a female, is a boss named the Mother of Stones in Chapter 2, which is nothing more than a still glowing rock with no abilities being guarded by other enemies. The lack of diversity and inclusion represents the misogynistic comments reported to have been made by developers which expressed disdain for women playing their games. Although Black Myth Wukong does not truly have enjoyable moments, the underlying feeling that women aren't welcome in this world felt present throughout the gameplay experience. Now, again, we'll get to that quote in a little bit, but I did want to take a little bit of a tangent to talk about the author themselves. I did do a little bit of interesting digging on what the author was, and the author's name is Samar Abeldian. I am so very sorry, Miss Senior Staff Writer. I cannot pronounce your name because of dyslexia, and I'm very bad at names in general. But she is a senior gaming guide writer for Screen Rant with classic degrees at King's College London and stuff like that for things for art and fantasy and stuff. But the underlined section that I found here, that I again pulled from Twitter, was that she is a passionate about creativity and cultural representation. Despite the fact that she wrote the article on Black Myth Wukong and made that entire section about, quote, diversity and inclusion, which this wanted to make a more faithful-ish representation of what is known as Journey to the West. Now, a quick explanation of Journey to the West is that Journey to the West is what Black Myth Wukong is based off of. Wukong is a very big, I believe, Chinese, a big Chinese character that's over there. He was based on some of the more influences that you can make a tithe to. I think Goku was very heavily based on him, as well as maybe one or two other characters that I can't think of off the top of my head. But he has been a very influential character throughout the whole thing. But overall, I find it interesting how she's about creativity and cultural representation, despite the fact that she says that there's no inclusivity, when very clearly, if you've ever heard or seen anything about the Journey of the West, it's a kind of male-dominated area, but there are a couple of notable fucking female characters that do exist as not necessarily regular characters, plus they also have other stuff. And again, I'm not sure if this goes through the entire Journey to the West, because if it goes through the entire Journey to the West, the first few chapters might be about Wukong himself defying the gods and then getting trapped under a mountain before getting to something. And she already mentioned the major NPC, which was the Mother of Stones, who is a female, I believe. But there's also several other ones, including one later in there where there's an entire town that is based on that. Again, the myth is long, so there is a lot of characters to that. But I wanted to point this out because this person originally had their names attached to this project. However, upon the numerous amounts of backlash, they actually took her name off of it, which I find interesting. Again, this is pulled from Twitter as well. I just thought that it was very, very interesting as well. But that honestly hasn't stopped the popularity of this game, oddly enough. Because what's really funny is that Black Myth Wukong's benchmarking tool, which is not a game, has more quote-unquote players than Concord's beta at its peak. This is taken from other stuff where the players at the peak of Black Myth Wukong's benchmarking tool had about 40 to 50,000 players, like close to 50,000 players within I believe that says 24-hour period. Again, my screenshot is a little bit. Oh no, the all-time peak is 47,000. With the Steam charts for Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League and Concord both undervaluing 10,000. One undervaluing at 10,000 and one undervaluing at that. So again, the comparison to this is not like 1-to-1. It's just an interesting thing that I found because that just shows how popular this game is, despite everyone having an issue with the actual article. And as a kind of tangent to that, there is also that it apparently has broke preloads. They broke the record for bandwidth used on Steam since Cyberpunk 2077's launch, with them again showing this whole thing. Again, this is not to be taken as this game is going to be super popular and super like big and sell everything, because some people have started to be like, oh, I'm not going to buy this game, or I'm not going to promote this game's stuff. And again, we'll get into that other half of it in a second here. But overall, it's just interesting how this game is still popular despite how gaming journalists have continued to try to downplay it as well. But over here, over onto Outcasters, I believe their name is, saying, if you were thinking about playing back with Wukong, like myself, think again. Someone leaked the early Steam copy, TOS, and the game dev is a raging misogynist. Yeah, I get it is not furries. I guess it has hot furries in it, but consider what you're supporting. Wrong your, by the way. So the thing with this is that this is apparently what a sort of TOS or something about this is, and it basically explains what the do's and don'ts about this game are to this. Again, I'm not sure where this is specifically pulled from. I didn't find the original source. That's on me. No one seems to be talking about it, but there's basically a notice that says the game key and content creation, acknowledging that have been informed by following content. Your sentiments are not related to the marketing team. Do's and don'ts of what you should and should not do, including things such as trigger warnings and offensive language and humor and other influence and insult people, blah, blah, blah. Standard TOS stuff. However, they seem to have pulled up an interview from another gaming journalist article, so again, take this with a grain of salt as to the fact that this is, again, I believe, a Chinese person not being translated properly, and I believe people have actually found the original and translated it properly, and it didn't say something like this. So they said in a now viral tweet, the user Sumerian Tot shared a friendly reminder to game developers himself, and this game is no female players. The following with the translations of post, blah blah blah. So again, it's a translation error or something like that. It seems to be. The original goal or something, like another quote is down here, but again, that's not really the end-all, be-all part that people have a problem with. The part of friendly reminder that there is no need for female gamers or female players in this seems to be the main part of that. Now, again, I am not sure where they're pulling this stuff from, which is the biggest part of the problem here, which is why I'm only reporting on it. But if they did say something like this, I believe that they came back and said that this person doesn't represent their intentions of it, and they already kind of nipped this in the butt. But people trying to bring this back has been a big thing. And again, I'm not sure. I'm not a big gaming journalist guy, and this is meant to be just a smaller form factor video, despite the fact that we already hit the 10-minute mark. But overall, right? Overall, what have we learned today? Well, number one is that gaming journalism seems to be continuing to not only talk about the wrong things to talk about, not necessarily the wrong things to talk about, as people just try to insert politics into that, but the whole aspect that there seems to be, like, everything's connected and stuff like that is very weird. But overall, to me, right, the end-all, be-all of this conversation comes down to two things. Number one is you really shouldn't trust gaming journalism any more than you can throw a stone at. They're a good reference point, maybe sometimes, but I would recommend using more user reviews and more content of people who don't have an incentive to try to boast up numbers for whatever reason. And yes, oh, you're a YouTuber, you boast up numbers all the time, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, but I have no monetary incentive as of right now to really do that. And I would like a monetary incentive, absolutely, but I would like a monetary incentive that allows me to continue to just give my own opinion for stuff, if that makes sense. And again, yeah, certainly you can make the argument for that and everything gets all weird about it. But I think that the difference between most commentary YouTubers like myself and gaming journalism comes down to the second factor, which is the sense of neutrality, if that makes sense. They don't come at this with a very neutral intention. I do the same thing, I guess, to, not lie to you guys, but I come at it with trying to at least understand the artistic intent behind something, or at least trying to understand the other person's perspective, and if they don't convince me, guess what? You get a video on me, because that's how I kind of operate. But I think that'll about do it. I think I've given my opinion enough on this. So yeah, gaming journalism is continuing to explain why, they should stick to not talking about stuff like politics and things because people are upset with them. But at the end of the day, this is just a silly YouTube video on the internet, and, this has been another episode of me ranting into a microphone about something that someone might not like, or might not understand, or whatever. But anyway, thank you again so much for watching. My name is GamePenguin21. If you want to support me in any way, shape, or form, like I said before at the top of the video, links down to everything in the description below. I make music, I do live streams, I go out and do other stuff. I have a Twitter and an Instagram, all linked down in the description below. Liking and subscribing is always lovely for you guys to come back to see some more of my videos. But again, if you don't want to, that's completely fine. So, whatever. But at the end of the day, my name is GamePenguin21, like I said before, and a peace off.